are some of the biggest questions surrounding the Calgary Flames not answered by the end of September.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are talking about some of the biggest questions surrounding the Calgary Flames and the narratives heading into the season. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We basically, in the thick of things right now, right? The thick of preseason. And a lot of questions surrounding the Flames don't have any answers. And there doesn't seem to be clarity to much of the issues, quote unquote, the problems that have arisen. There's no answer to this equation. And we're going to talk about that. It's a great time to learn. I think if there's one thing the Flames need to do this season, it is approach things with an open mind, but not an overly confident mind. I think they should be cautious. You're getting a taste of what's to come for the Flames, and not just because they're out on the ice, but because you're also watching the younger guys that are improving on their development. And we're going to talk more about the younger guys later in the show, but the Flames have a lot of ground to make up regardless, and we know where that starts. It starts right in between the pipes. You need to have two solid goaltenders. Not three, not one, but two. And I don't know about y'all, but right now it doesn't look as if the Flames are doing anything with Dan Vladar. And I mean, the Avalanche still need a goaltender. I don't know if the phone has just not connected, is a bad signal or what, but the Flames still have Vladar, Markstrom, and Dustin Wolf starting preseason games. Yes, I get it. They've played 3 preseason games. It's really not that deep, but you probably want to start refining your roster and really cracking down on what the possibilities are going to be. And this is just, it's unrealistic. Even if the Flames are without Oliver Kylington for some time, you're not cap compliant with 3 goaltenders. Right now, I think they're still like a few $100,000 over the cap, and they've got like less than 21 days to figure this out. And that's not a long time. And I really wish that things were moving a little bit faster, just for the sake of Dustin Wolf. There is no reason for him to be in the AHL. Unfortunately, there is a logjam with the Flames right now because they don't have a way to move Vladar at the moment. My phone's on Do Not Disturb right now, so maybe he's already gotten traded. I don't know. While I'm recording, it's very well a possibility, but unlikely. Markstrom, there's like no guarantee that he's going to bounce back or be consistent enough to rely on him. And if you don't have a solid backup, you are setting yourself up for failure. The Flames want to carry 3 goaltenders to start the season, or at least that's what their prerogative was back in July, I think, when they were talking about it. But not having Dustin Wolf in the NHL is doing him a massive disservice. Number one, he's done all he can at the AHL level. The only thing he doesn't have is a Calder Cup. And at the end of the day, that's not really his goal. He's not an AHL goaltender. He wants to win a Stanley Cup. And I'm curious to see if he is going to make this roster? How often are they going to put him out there? How are they going to integrate him into the NHL level? Because what happens if things get rocky for Markstrom and you want a better goaltender? Dan Vladar also didn't really have a stellar season last year, and you're just going to throw a kid out there with one NHL game under his belt out there? That's not setting anyone up for success. And for him to continue to develop fully into an NHL goaltender, he needs those reps. And those reps need to start now. They need to start, and they need to be consistent. They need to be against good teams, mid teams, bad teams. They really need to find a way to integrate him into the goalie tandem. They need to find a way to move Vladar. I'm sorry. I know Vladar is great. He's a great personality, great person. He was the first AHL player I interviewed post-game. These are moments that matter more than just a guy's, personality and what he brings to the locker room, because you're but you're talking about someone's future here, and really the future of your organization, because as far as we're all concerned, Dustin Wolf is probably going to be the future of the Flames goaltending. And that could be sooner than Markstrom's contract. Who knows? Markstrom does have 3 years left, but what's the likelihood of him actually finishing that out? He can get traded. He can get bought out. There's a million possibilities, and they need to have a safety net in place in case things go south. And Dustin Wolf should be part of that solution. And it's up to everyone out there, the Flames organization, to really make that known. Colorado still needs a goaltender. There are teams that are going to need a goaltender come, like I've said before on the show, Christmas, probably around New Year's. When injuries start popping up, you never know what could happen. And that's... Once they figure out how they're going to integrate Dustin Wolf into the NHL on a consistent level, I will feel better. I will feel better about the goaltending situation as a whole and the long-term vision of this team. But coming up next, we are going to talk about comebacks, who really has to contribute and find a way to not let themselves slip back into past performances. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break here and talk about our friends at FanDuel. Kick off NHL season at FanDuel.com or on the FanDuel app. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. I mean, that's a win-win situation right there. That's $200 in bonus bets that you can use on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. I did check out FanDuel's props for some Flames bets, and, you might want to place a bet on the Battle of Alberta. You never know. And you can get this wonderful offer at FanDuel.com. You can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. I am greatly appreciative of anyone that tunes into this show. And thanks for making this year one of... it is the most successful season so far. So lots of love to anyone that's listening and downloading. I appreciate you. You know who else I appreciate? Jonathan Huberdeau. I greatly appreciate anything that man does. And the biggest thing here is getting him going and keeping him going. Not saying he has to be the Energizer Bunny going out there for all 82 games. And I mean, if he wants to put up a point per game, that'd be neat. I'm not going to complain, but there has to be a pretty decent performance from him this year in order for the Flames to succeed, and that goes hand in hand with Jacob Markstrom. Both of them are coming back from significantly poor seasons. They are working with a coach now that doesn't appear to not like them. So that's at least going in their favor now. And I think Huberdeau in himself is just going to be a better player. I think that with a more offensively focused system and game plan, you're going to see more of what Jonathan Huberdeau is and who he is and why he up 115 points. I'm not saying he's going to do that again, but if he wants to just get north of 75, that would be neat. I'm also really curious to see how this knee bruise works out and how that's going to be an issue. One time I dislocated my knee and I had a massive bone bruise on my knee. They hurt. They're not fun. It's really painful and just uncomfortable. Like, you can't really, I don't know the severity of his, but from personal experience, you move the wrong way once and it's just like, I'm going to assume like you've been shot in the kneecap. That's what it feels like. I don't know, but it's not fun. It's very painful. I want to see him get into a rhythm. I want to see him stay healthy and hopefully really find his game again. The Flames need that from him. And they also need to find that from Kadri too. Kadri has to find his rhythm. I find it very hard to believe that he could do the point per game season again. I think that Coronato was set up for that. And just the way that they play was more Kadri's. But with a new system in place here, it kind of, maybe the Flames could bring that out in Kadri again. I would like to see at least 60 points from him. I think like 50, 60, that's a fair realm. I would love to see him just flourish. Bring the player to life that Flames fans were so excited to sign back in July last year. Was that July? It was definitely later than July. It was like August. But there can't be a regression of past behavior either. Started to see that a little bit in the season game on Sunday, and I was like, oh no, what are we doing here? Like, we're playing against kids. Why are we crashing the net like that? What are we doing? But again, things happen. Tempers fly. Any of these players are going to find themselves in those situations, but I would really enjoy it if Kadri wasn't putting a target on his back like he wasn't when he played in Toronto. Those were not fun days for him with how he was portrayed in the media, his reputation around the league. And it got costly for Toronto, having him suspended or, constantly having to kill off one of his penalties. It's not realistic for the Flames to have to do all of that and do it well. I would really appreciate it if this whole team just worked together to take as little penalties as possible. I do think that it's possible for Kadri to find his offensive game again. It's, it doesn't have to be a heater for the whole season. If he can just avoid the second half of last season, we're good. And again, he doesn't have to fly out of the gates looking, at that point per game average. It's just, again, not realistic. If he can just go out there, help make plays, throw up some assists, some goals, that would be great. I'm hoping that he does find, I don't think that he really lost his confidence or anything like that. I think that he's always been a player that holds his own regardless of who he's playing with. But I would really like to see him flourish in, Ryan Huska's new system. It's like Barbie world, but Flames world. I think it's such an interesting thing. Like we talked about yesterday on the show, how systems are so important and needed in this game. And I'm hoping that instead of playing against these players' strengths. They're really being encouraged to play into them, because the less defense some of these players have to play, the better. I'm going to be real honest. Sometimes the amount of turnovers that happen, not pretty. And speaking of not pretty, Jacob Markstrom. He cannot perform like he did last year. It is just entirely unacceptable, and you need to get at least league average goaltending out of him. I'm not looking to have a Vezina finalist again. I don't think any of us are, realistically. I just want to see like a .915 save percentage. I feel like that's realistic. 910 even, but I feel like that's a very obvious answer too for who has to have a comeback season. But sometimes the obvious answer is staring you right in the face. And with this team, it is. I think that all of the players from last season really do need to find themselves again and rejuvenate and resuscitate themselves in their game because they don't want to be bad like last year. No one wants to play like that. That's not fun. It's not enjoyable, and you don't really get very far in the postseason, if at all, with that kind of hockey. So it's so important that this team is just cohesive and consistent. Like those words that they have on their locker room walls now. Coming up next, we are going to talk about the young guys and, of course, the plan for the UFAs. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're getting your podcasts and, of course, on YouTube as well. Last night, Jakob Pellitier had a really awkward collision into the boards against Seattle. And as of right now, I haven't seen any updates, which, I mean, no news is good news. But at the same time, I feel like if things were good, we'd have an update, because Ryan Huska said at the end of the game, like, oh, the doctors are going to work with him tomorrow and like we'll have an update then. Nothing. And I didn't see anything at the typical time of the media addressing and anything like that. So there was no update when the roster cuts were made. So I'm cautiously optimistic there, I guess. I'm really not entirely sure what to think because, like I said, no news could be good news, or they're waiting for further testing because they need to see the extent of the injury. And if that's the case, one of your major components and key prospects, missing time is not going to help this team that needs his presence on and off the ice. You're hoping it's, he's just a little dinged up, if at all, and he'll be back. So we could be getting a little ahead of ourselves there. I'm also really, really liking what we're seeing from Matthew Coronato. And that was a given as well. I think that his shot is it's gorgeous. It's something that he will always have. It's not necessarily a skill that he has to refine. It's going to be more of just getting the puck on his stick. I'm very intrigued to see where he starts this season and how things kind of look there, because I do wonder what this roster is going to look like. And we'll have a clearer picture probably in a week from now. And well, yeah, definitely within a week from now, actually. But the Flames they need to bet on these young guys. And it's not just Wolf. It's not just Coronato. It's not just Pellitier. Connor Zary, Jamie Poirier, and Kuznetsov is another guy. Like there are some bright futures ahead in these kids. And it feels like under this new management, things are going to be, a little bit, not easier for them, but it's not going to be as difficult to get a shot at playing at a higher level as it was, say, last year and years prior. It's so frustrating because do I think Matthew Phillips would have stayed had he had a real chance at an NHL spot last year? Yeah, I would say so. But you also can't count on that. I can't guarantee that. And it's crazy to me that this team just let him walk. And it sounds like they offered him more money too, but he said, no, I want to go to Washington. So I wonder if Mitch Love going to Washington really did play a role in that decision. But speaking of UFAs and players leaving, why do we still have 5 of the 6 UFAs? Like today, Eric Francis was like, yeah, expect Backlund to be signed and announced as captain in the next week or 2. My brother in Calgary, we spent all summer saying and believing that he wasn't interested in re-signing. He wanted to go win. He wasn't interested. He declined the captaincy and declined the extension at that time. So I want to know and would like to know and kind of need to know what changed. Do I just kind of take on this leadership role because I've been here the longest and everyone says that he is basically the unofficial captain of the team? And that's all well and good, but if he wants out, he wants out. There's nothing you can do at that point. And Noah Hanifin too. Can we talk about that for a second? Can we talk about Noah Hanifin was like, yeah, I want out of here. Too, oh yeah, I'm willing to stay. I just need to see how it goes. Get him off of this roster. If you're in a playoff spot, you're not trading him. And he's not going to re-sign yet. So you're just going to let him walk. Elias Lindholm, we need to figure that out too, because the uncertainty with that situation is nauseating and has been since the game against Arizona. Thinking of, what the next step is there. And I don't know what the Flames' plan is. And that's why these are some of the biggest questions heading into the season, because there's no definitive answer. And you have to wait for these players' performances to really pay off and answer these questions. Gearing up for the season, just keep some of these things in the back of your mind. When is Dustin Wolf going to be seeing consistent time in the NHL? Is Matthew Coronato going to be able to adjust to the AHL and NHL and refine some of those other skills? Is Jakob Pellitier going to start the season in the NHL? Is he even going to start the season on time? What's going on? What can we expect from Oliver Kylington? Is Mangiapane going to bounce back as well as Huberdeau? There's a lot, and I hope you're taking notes. But that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's an absolute pleasure talking to y'all about the Calgary Flames every day. Make sure that you're subscribed wherever you're getting your podcasts. And of course, on YouTube, you can follow me on Twitter at JessBelmosto. And I will see you tomorrow. Nick will be back as well. And maybe we'll have some actual Flames news to talk about.